Hey guys, Matt Allen here. Welcome back to Tactical Bass, and today we're talking about one of my favorite big fish catching techniques for the post-spawn and summertime. These are swinging jigs. Call them a swinging jig, call them a biffle head, a wobble head, whatever you want to call them. These catch giant fish and they're easy to use. The swinging jig head is an amazing concept. You've got a wide gap hook attached to a football style head, but they're free swinging. They move independently of one another. As a result, when you fish this bait, your trailer, your creature, has a ton of movement. When you see this, or rather this, don't think of these as creature baits or craw baits. Think of this as a crankbait, a spinner bait, a chatter bait. It's a bottom contact, fast moving bait, and it is remarkable how well it works. We're talking about it right now. I mentioned these in the top baits for June video just a few days ago. I said this video was coming. Every time we do a top baits video, right, we're excited talking about the month to come. In every one of those videos, there's always that one technique that is like, that's the one, because there's a lot of good ways to catch fish every month, but it seems like every month there's one technique that's really coming on strong. Like it's that month is the peak of that bite. And for me, June is wobblehead season. This is the peak of my bite. I can catch them 12 months out of the year on a wobblehead, but I catch my biggest ones in June and July. This is just the time of year where it excels. Now there's the actual act of fishing a wobblehead is so simple, and the baits I use are so simple. There will be less products linked in this video than virtually any other video I do all year, because it really is simple. What's fun about it is that it's simple, it's easy to do, but monsters bite it. I mean, can you ask for more than that? It catches little ones and it catches freaks of nature. Now the concept, here's the first thing you need to know. You need hard bottom. Okay, if you are on a Florida fishery that is wall-to-wall solid grass, it will not work for you. However, if you can find a canal or a lane or a hard bottom spot, anywhere you can find hard bottom, you can get this to work. The only thing that will cause it to stop working is if you grass up the head and it won't wobble. As long as you've got hard bottom, you're good. Now, if you've got rock, you're even better. If you've got rock, you don't have to do anything. What you do is you throw this guy out, you let it fall and hit the bottom. As soon as it hits bottom, you just start a slow, steady retrieve. Typically, my retrieve is as fast as I can go while still bumping bottom. Okay, simple. So I'm gonna throw it faster in shallow water than I am in deep water. But I'm also going to switch head sizes, and we'll get to that, in order to maintain bottom contact at a fairly high speed. Because I want to be reeling this along, bumping the rocks, and having those tails kick and move underwater. Once you see it underwater, it all makes sense. I mean, in your hand, you're like, yeah, okay, why does that catch giants? But you see it underwater and you're like, okay, I understand that it looks really good. Now, why does bright purple catch giants in the summertime? They like it. Just know that they like it across the entire country. So the idea is you want to hit bottom, start rolling, have that thing bumping through the rocks with that trailer back there waving around with those legs and arms flapping. And that's it. The fish will come up and clobber that thing. Now, I said rocks are better. That's because with rocks, that's all you have to do. Hard bottom, so bottom that doesn't have much grass on it, where you're mostly free of grass, but you're not necessarily banging into things, then I'll add like my own little rod shakes and hops and pops, and there are real twitches. I'll be cruising along, give it a little shake, just trying to get that bait to move, and that will typically trigger a bite. So for me, grass is a no-go. Rock is best case scenario. But anywhere in the middle you can make work. You just need to add a little bit of something with your rod and your reel to get that bait, because it'll just be bumping along bottom with the legs kicking, but you won't be getting that hunting, moving action. But you could throw a little something in there with your rod and get some of that throughout your cast. You know, do it half a dozen times on a long cast, and you can typically trigger a follower into eating it. Now, as far as the actual baits and the gear and all that stuff, this is so simple. The vast majority of the baits that I throw are in that 4-inch size range, okay? This doesn't require a giant bait. The only time I go smaller is if I'm on a finesse fishery or I'm getting short strikes. So let's talk about the core first, and then we'll talk about how to adapt from there. At the core, the bait that kicked this thing off for me was the Zoom Z-Craw. You guys have heard me talk about this for years. I mean, I can't count the number of fish I caught on a June bug Z-Craw on this technique. However, these got really hard to get a couple of years ago, and that had us looking for alternatives. That's when I stumbled on the Adrenaline Craw. You know, we love to do underwater footage, right? We started comparing baits underwater. The Adrenaline Craw has way more action at way slower speeds. I mean, that is truly the wobble head bait. If you were gonna ask me, one bait, one color, Adrenaline Craw, June bug, go. That's it, boom, done. This video could be over. I already told you how to fish the baits. Seriously, it's that easy. The only time I don't throw June bug. So June bug is my big fish color in the summertime. If I need a monster bite, if I've had a good day, but I'm like, man, a big one would seal this deal, I go to June bug and I just start banging bottom with that thing. If they won't eat June bug, I actually catch more fish on the natural colors. So like a green pumpkin or my actual personal favorite, tilapia. I will catch more fish on the natural stuff, but I could throw natural stuff all day. I'll catch 35 fish, and then I'm like, I haven't had a big bite. I'm going to June bug, and I'll throw a June bug for 15 minutes and catch a 6-pounder, right? It just, for whatever reason, it gets those big bites consistently. Now, those are the two main baits. There are some other baits that I throw. The other main one, I throw the Pack-A-Slim, the net bait Pack-A-Slim. That's this one. You guys know how much I like that bait. I like it as a jig trailer. I like it flipping. I like it on a chatterbait. I like it on a wobble head. The Strike King Rage Bug is one I've caught a lot of fish on. I used to throw the Kitech Crazy Flapper a lot. I have stopped using that for this technique. Not because it doesn't work. It smashes them. But the bait gets destroyed super quick. I mean, you will go through packs and packs and packs of baits where you can use one of these that I'm talking about and you'll catch a pile of fish and you won't go through a whole pack. So I've kind of given that one up just because of how much it was costing me in baits. And these baits are just so effective. But again, if I could have one, it's that. And either June bug or X-Zone also has, through TW, they have an exclusive dark June bug. And I really, really like that one. That's an amazing color. Now the heads, my standard heads, okay, I have two. It's this easy, I'm serious. Two that I use, they're both Dirty Jigs pivot point footballs. And I've got two sizes, okay? These are them. This is a 1/2 ounce head with a 4/0 hook. Now that hook is a super line hook. That's why I like this specific one so much, because there are a lot of wobble heads on the market. This is the specific one I use. I trust that super line hook. It gets them. So 1/2 ounce 4/0, 3/4 ounce 5/0. That's it. If I'm fishing shallower, I'm throwing that 1/2 ounce. As soon as I feel like I've got to go too slow to keep that bottom contact, cut that one off, switch over to that 3/4. I like that 5/0 because it's a bit of a gaff, right? When you poke them on the 5/0, I mean, you've got them. It's a mean hook, and this is that exact setup. This is a 3/4 5/0, and I understand a lot of people don't normally throw a 3/4 ounce head. Keep in mind, this is not jig fishing. This is movement. We want this thing cruising. So it takes a heavier head than you're used to maintain bottom contact while you're steady reeling. Bump, 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 banging your way along the bottom. One last trick. If I'm getting short strikes, there's two things I do. I said I downsize. The other thing I do is I take my pliers and I bend my hook ever so slightly, and I've already done it to this one, so I'm just pretending right now. Just ever so slightly tip it up. That way, when I pull that bait up flush, that hook point is actually showing. Okay, I typically fish this thing text posed, tucked in, but if I'm getting short strikes, I give it a little bend and I leave it exposed. I fish it with that hook point actually out. My hookup ratio will go through the roof. Now, anytime you tip a hook out, there's that much more of a chance that the fish can throw it. So when I hit them, the rod matters, and I put a lot of pressure on those fish. I grind them. Now, the only time that I deviate from those two heads is when I'm throwing smaller baits. I throw smaller baits in two situations. One, when I'm getting short strikes and I can't seem to solve it, I'll go to the smaller bait, whether that is the little Z-Craw, or wouldn't you know it, the little adrenaline craw. Now there you need like a 2/0 or a 3/0 hook. I traditionally have gone to a tungsten head, and the tungsten heads all have lighter wire hooks. I've never found a tungsten head with a super line hook. So a lot of times for me, I'm using those when I'm fishing places where the fish are smaller, and then I don't worry about that lighter wire hook. But we keep running into this situation where fish are getting more and more finicky, but they're not smaller, right? We're on the Tennessee River and you've got these giant fish, but they want to eat smaller stuff. So I, this year, have started playing with these. This Gamakatsu hybrid head, where this is a 3/4 ounce tungsten head, right? Look at it compared to a 3/4 ounce lead head. Size comparison there. Huge difference in size. But I'll take that head, 1/2 or 3/4, and then I take my favorite hook. Like one of my favorite hooks, and it's a cheap hook, but it's a very, very good hook. That Owner all-purpose bait hook. This is a 3/0. So let's take that, and all you do is you take that thing up, and it just curls right up on there. And now it's on that head. I mean, it's not attached. You can unwind that. But the way that thing is shaped, I haven't had one come off yet. I'm always waiting for the day it happens, but it just doesn't happen. This works really well. And then I can take that and I can pair that up to these smaller baits. And again, I can put any hook on I want. I can put on a 2/0 Superline. I could put on a 3/0 standard wire hook. I could put on different shaped hooks for different situations. So many things that you can do with that free head like that. So again, there's that 3/0. Now we're all set up. Perfect hook, perfect size for the right bait, and I'm getting a tungsten head out of the deal. It's a sweet, sweet setup. Now, I bring this color up by no accident. That, again, this is that adrenaline craw, although this is the junior. This color is called 309. You guys have seen us talk about fishing in the north, throwing tubes, throwing sandy colored tubes, throwing goby colored tubes, throwing drop shot. We throw those goby colors, right? Those real sandies, browns. I have crushed fish in the north on that adrenaline craw. 309 is the color. But again, it's just a sandy color. It fits that situation perfectly. Crystal clear smallmouth, absolute slugfest. And the cool thing about this is I'm able to downsize everything because I'm choosing my hook. So I can get all the way down to like 10 or 12 pound fluoro. But the cool thing is that when I stick those fish, a lot of times when you're chasing giant smallies, I'm using like 5 pound fluoro, size 2, size 4, little tiny light wire hooks. When this works and I crack that fish, I've got them on 10 or 12 pound fluoro and I've got them on a 3/0 hook. I mean, I've got them. I'm not losing those big smallies. I'm sticking them and putting them in the boat, and that makes this even more appealing. It's a really fun way to fish. So again, just a couple of baits, just a couple of heads. The other thing that matters is rod. I grabbed 2 that I've had be very effective for me. The thing with the rod, I throw them on braid to leader unless I can't solve the short strikes. Fish get into these moods where like, and who knows what causes it, but you'll be reeling that thing along, dong, smash them, got them all day long. Then you'll have that other day where you're like reeling along and it's like, whoa, feels funny, they're gone. So you bend out your hook. Hang one, okay, you got one. Miss the next one, miss the next one. Okay, let's go to the small bait. Stick a couple, miss another one, miss another one. Like, what is the deal? On those days, I'll take my braid reel off, I'll put a fluoro reel on with like 18 to 20 pound fluoro. Repeat. And it's like that ½ second of lag time lets those fish vacuum it up just that extra little bit, and my hookup ratio will go up. But most days, I want it on braid to leader. I want to feel those bites. They crush this. The bites feel like swim bait bites, just dong, they hit it so hard. But again, going back to the rods themselves, the cool thing about this technique, it does require some very specific actions. You want rods that are really powerful, that can set a 4 or 5/0 superline hook, but they've also got to be softer through that midsection so you can really load up and keep those fish pegged. Both of these rods are rods that I use for a lot of other things too. I've told you guys in other videos this year, one of my personal goals at the beginning of this year was to identify additional uses for some of my favorite rods. And this is a perfect example of that. The #1 rod that I throw a wobble head on is a Megabass Orochi Braillist. You guys know that is also my favorite jig rod of all time. And not very long ago, we went out and had an awesome day where I was catching 6-inch mag draft fish on this rod, and it did a great job for that as well. Now we're talking about a third technique that is super effective on that Braillist. Because again, it's hard for a guy to buy a dedicated rod for one thing, but if we can identify some different uses, you can save a lot of money, right? You can get better quality gear because you're buying one setup for a bunch of things rather than all these different setups. That Braillist is amazing for this technique. Now, a little bit more budget friendly, we've got in the Zodius, this is the 7.5 medium heavy. I really, really like this rod. This rod also happens to be what Tim and I throw our finesse A-rigs on. I throw this rod all winter long throwing the little rig. And then in the springtime, I mean, 7.5 medium heavy, I do like 50 different things with it. Just because it's a medium heavy is a universal rod already, but it really, really shines for this technique. This is one of the things where you're like, it excels at that. So just 2 really good options, and I'll link you a really good budget option, like a true budget option in the video description as well. But guys, the wobble head, again, it's simple. It's literally throw it out, hit the bottom, start winding. If you can't stay on the bottom, put a heavier head on. If you're getting bites and they're not hooking up, you go to the smaller bait. But the baits are basic. My colors are basic. June bug, tilapia, green pumpkin if you want, super basic. Heads are basic, rods are simple. The technique, the actual doing it, is simple. Again, the only guy this won't help is the guy who has no spots where there isn't grass. You gotta have a spot with no grass, or at least light grass. I mean, you can't throw this in hydrilla. You definitely can't throw it in that like pond slime where it'll just bind up on everything. But you can break it through light grass. That's no problem. But harder the bottom, the better. Rockier, the better. Just bang your way through it. This will help you catch fish going through summer, and it will help you catch monster fish going through summer. Guys, we're keeping this one short and sweet. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and we'll talk to you soon.